Hey there, I'm so glad you're back for another episode of the Happy Whole You podcast. Please remember, if you can share these podcasts that speak to you or that you think someone else might benefit from, it is greatly appreciated. And today I brought another amazing guest, Anthony Hartcher, and he is an international speaker, mental health advisor, and holistic health practitioner. And he is absolutely amazing. He has two other podcasts. I've been on those podcasts, and his expertise spans a broad spectrum from sleep and mental health to nutrition and lifestyle medicine. As a holistic health consultant, he doesn't just advise, he revitalizes habits, empowering individuals to achieve superior health and overall well being. And he's going to share a little bit about his story today. And towards the end, we talk about sunlight and the benefits of sunlight. And oh my gosh, it is a great episode. I could talk to him for a long time. And also, you can follow him and check out his podcast. He has two of them. Me and My Health Up is one podcast. And then he has the Joyful Mate podcast as well. So go on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts and check out his other podcasts. And here we go. All right, Anthony, thank you so much for joining me on the Happy Whole You podcast.
Thank you for having me on the Happy You podcast, and it's a delight to be on here, Dr. Anna Marie Frank. It's a real honor. So I look forward to this conversation and enlightening the well-being of your listeners.
Yes, well, thank you. And I appreciate you. I've been on your podcast. We have two podcasts. We've been able to have a couple conversations prior to the one we're about to have. And so, yeah, it's great. I can't wait to share you with my listeners. And one of the reasons I wanted to interview you was because of your story. And there's so much power when we share our stories. And if you could just share with everyone, I guess before we get in your story, um, just a little bit about yourself and what you do now. And then we'll go into the story piece if you're good with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Uh, in terms of like, I really struggle, and I think this is common across everyone. I think like finding a label that defines you is really
Yeah.
difficult, and so
Yeah.
like I've got many labels, and like at the moment I'm calling myself the Joyful Journey Mentor. I'm a qualified clinical nutritionist. I have a chemical engineering degree and corporate career background, and like I'm a father, I'm a husband. And so for me, that's the happy whole you is all those together into one. I love nature. I love sport. I've, one of my greatest loves is health and wellness and helping others. So, and that's what I've essentially done now is marry my passion for health and wellness to serve others. And so that's really, I guess, me connecting with my meaning and purpose. And every day I look forward to every sunrise. Like I just can't wait to get up, and I really love getting out there and serving, sharing information. So I'm really in that, you could say it, the happy place or that joyful place or that very fulfilled place.
I love that. I love that for you. I love that for anyone that can find themselves there. And what's interesting about you is you are a chemical engineer. And so, how did you go from this transition from chemical engineer to a life of wellness in terms of your work? And then also, were you into wellness before when you were in the chemical engineering and you always had a love for it, or has it been a evolution for you?
It's been an absolute love since the beginning of time that I can remember, right? So if I go back to my early days as a child, I was very sick initially. That's my memories is a sick child being moved around from doctor to specialist, not really knowing what's going on, but having constant ear infections, congestion, and just feeling lethargic and scared of the water because I every time I got in the water, I got an ear infection. I didn't like the pain I was feeling at night, and so it become this phobia of water. Yet I loved being in the water, and so I wanted to get in the water, and so I wanted to get my ears better, but I felt so disempowered. And it was really that has set me up for life. But I didn't realize that at the time. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's now looking back and joining the dots. And so ever since that feeling of disempowerment and not having any control over my health, I then sought education from I'm talking, I was 5, 6 years old. So I'm reading health books, I'm reading health magazines, I- and and I actually started, like, dieting, but dieting for good health reasons, not, in relation to not happy with my body shape or anything like that. It was all
Yeah.
for good intentions to improve my health and well-being. I actually, looking back now, was doing intermittent fasting before it was, now popular today, but I was doing it back then.
I
And
call
so
them experiments. We don't use the word diet at Happy Whole You, we call them experiments,
yeah,
science
so
experiments.
100%. So I've been experimenting since 5, 6 years old with health and wellness, and
Wow.
like trying trends and trying, the new science and all that. And I'm still doing it today. So to answer your question, has been a constant evolution of my health and wellness. But in terms of, like, those years, I started educating myself. I started, doing sport and looking after my sleep and doing everything I knew that was healthy at the time. And then in my teenage years, I was challenged with acne and whatnot. And, you're worried about y- how you look and your appearance and all that. And because it's when you start sort of dating and things like that. And so I became very self conscious. I got quite down about myself and the way I looked. And then I lost a good friend through suicide at 18. And so that then led me down mental health. And so I guess up until 18, I was very focused on physical health. But from 18 onwards has been all about understanding the mind, human behavior, why we do what we do. And so I've been on that journey as well I guess at the same time as physical health. However, as a kid, you're very, I guess, look up to your parents and very directed and influenced by your parents. And they said, get a good education, go to tertiary school, go to university, get a good, qualify, and go out and work in a good job with a good company. And I ticked all those boxes, right? So I was doing all the good things and to set me up for life. I got married quite early. That only lasted 2 years, but I was doing all the things that, the cliche sort of societal things that supposedly is what is a happy life, right?
Yeah.
And so I had this career. I had already been through a marriage, and I was then finding myself again. I'm thinking, okay, the marriage didn't last, so that's a bit of a fantasy, happy forever or whatever it is, married
Yeah.
forever and happy forever. I thought, no, that must be a fantasy. And I'm in my career. I'm going up the corporate ladder, getting more money, and I'm thinking, but there's still something missing here. Like I'm getting paid really good money, and I've got this nice title and this job of responsibility and people reporting to me. And I was thinking, no, this just not. I'm still not me. Like there's something missing. And then I went on that journey as to what is this something missing, and I then thought, okay, Anthony, you've always been interested in health and wellness. Even in the corporate, every morning you're up exercising, you're out at lunch doing things, you're eating well. Everyone else around you is doing what everyone else is doing, eating Western foods and living the Western life. And it, Anthony, you've got a calling here. Like you can help others in finding health and well-being. But that inner voice was suppressed. Again, it was thinking, "Oh, no, no, that's not a good life." A good life is sticking with my job and maybe
Yeah.
finding a new marriage, and maybe that's the one. Um,
Yeah.
and
Like,
so
who do you think you are? You just spent all this time getting your degree, climbing the corporate ladder, doing all this, like, you must be crazy for
yeah,
thinking you would choose anything different because the life you were living is, like, often seen or we're often told that that's the dream, right? That's the dream, that's the ultimate, you've made it. Why would you, like, rock the boat?
yeah, 100%. And that's what I felt like. And I was thinking, like, my mum and dad, like, dad was so proud of me being a chemical engineer and telling all these friends and, like, as a kid, you look up to your dad and, and I still have that admiration for him today. And I didn't wanna, like, for me, if I changed careers, I would lose that connection with dad or that love from dad. And I was thinking, "Oh, I don't know if I could do this." And I kept getting little insights. So I ran into a naturopath, right, in when I was working in New Zealand. Never been to a naturopath, didn't even know what a naturopath did, right?
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, but because I've always been open to new things and exploring, like, I'm really curious, and so I thought I'd just go along and see what a naturopath does. And it really resonated with me. And I was thinking, wow, you want to know about me and what I like and who I am and where I want to go with my health. And you're coming up with this tailored program for me. And it's, not drugs or anything like that. And I was thinking, wow, I love these naturopaths. I was thinking, I wouldn't mind being you, like
Yeah.
it's I had these moments that were sowing seeds within me, but I was sort of, again, dismissing them, like thinking, I went back to my job and I'll get another, promotion. I was thinking, okay, no, maybe this promotion's going to be the one, this is going to give me this fulfillment and I won't have this void in me anymore. And it wasn't the case. So I ended up back in Australia and it was really interesting. I was then seeing a chiropractor in Australia, and they then were putting on a health and wellness night, right? And they had this special guest speaker from Melbourne. And I thought, okay, I'm going to learn more about health and wellness. So I go along to their event night, and I went along, and it was the naturopath I saw in New
Oh
Zealand.
my gosh.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And that I saw him up on stage and he had the whole audience like mesmerized and fully engaged, and he was sharing his story, then he was empowering them with health and wellness tips. And I actually, in that moment, could see myself doing that. And
Mm.
but again, it was sort of, oh, this is that was probably, the big moment in terms of,
Yeah.
yeah, that was the sliding door moment. 'Cause I had my I think I don't think I can't remember if we were married or engaged, but anyway, I had my partner with me, and, but she gave me that little bit of encouragement I needed. You get what I mean? Like, "I support you. You can do this." And so, therefore, knowing that dad may sort of reject me, or I was thinking, "But I've got a partner here to go with." And
Yeah.
so that was
Isn't it
really.
sorry, I don't wanna interrupt, but I gotta say, like, I was literally just having this conversation with someone the other day. I'm like, what is so beautiful about language and being in conversation with people about what's possible or people that think about what's possible. It's like an invitation how one conversation can change the trajectory of your whole life. It's like the most profound, amazing thing that I think about that because as with what I do without working with people, with what you do with working with people, it's like we're working with people in a capacity about what's possible because we're going against what we've been told. We're going against, the norm that is making us sick, that is making us feel unfulfilled, that is making us feel lonely, that is making us feel like we can't. And so I just always like I just think it's so powerful conversations, and if you're in the conversations with the right people, right? Could you imagine if your partner was not in that
Yes.
mindset? You know what I mean? Like, 'cause some people are, they're with partners that are like, "Why would you think about that? Like, aren't you just, like, happy with where you're at?" Like, oh my god, you know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
and I just wanted to point that out because for anyone listening out there, this is where that saying, like, you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most, financially, mindset-wise, physically, nutritionally, the average of them is because of the influence that they have. So if you change your conversations and you change the people you're having conversations with, it's amazing of what is possible and what then you believe, "Well, yeah, I can do this." So, anyways, okay, bravo for her. Keep going. I just had to throw that in there.
That was great. It was a great summary, in terms of, yeah, I guess the key takeaway. So, yeah, thank you for interjecting there and sharing that insight because, I think you did that so well. So, Yeah, so yeah, it was just that little bit of encouragement, that, tap in the shoulder and, "You've got this." And it then initiated me to follow up with Damien and ask him about, like, I had no idea, like, 'cause I went to a traditional university that taught traditional degrees, and now I'm doing, like, what, it's quackery, or, witch
Yeah.
doctoring. And and so he goes, "Where do I study naturopathy? Like, where would I go?" And so then he recommended, a place to study. And then I rang them up, and they said, "Oh, we're not in New South Wales." I'm in New South Wales of Australia, which is a state in Australia. We're only in every other state but not New South Wales.
Oh gosh.
Uh, and back then, there was no remote learning, right? So you had to turn up to campus and learn. And so they said, "Well, I'm sorry, you're going to have to wait until we get registration in New South Wales." But it's amazing when something clicks, you don't stop. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and so for me, I didn't see that as a barrier. I just saw it, "Well, how can I make this work?" And then I'm talking to Adriana, and I'm saying, "Would you move?" Or, "Can we move? Do we move interstate?" And obviously we both had jobs, full-time jobs, but we were open for this exploration. And long and behold, you wouldn't believe, 6 months later, they get the approval to run the degree in New South Wales, and here I am in campus. So it was, yeah, just an incredible sliding door moment, which then, opened the door to studying. And the amazing thing that then, like, talk about momentum, right? So once, you have this spark, and you open up the heart and soul, you become unstoppable. Because, like, I'm at university, and, like, my prior learning experiences was struggle. I struggled to learn. You could say that I had learning difficulties, ADHD, dyslexia, everything under the sun. And I was thinking, and that, like, I'd have nightmares prior, right? So nightmares after schooling about how I was unprepared, dumb, stupid, like, regularly. And I'm thinking, are all these nightmares going to come true when I'm starting to restudy and relearn and learn? And I'm thinking, "Oh, I don't know if I can do it." And again, that self doubt sort of creeps in based on past experiences. But the amazing thing was once I stepped into that space, and as you said, the top 5 people around you really define who you are. I, the moment I stepped into that college, it resonated with me. The people talked my language. We
Yeah.
just spoke about health and wellness all the time, nonstop, and like, we couldn't stop
Yeah.
chatting about it. And you talk to the lecturer, and they just love talking about health and wellness. And I'm thinking, "Oh, this is the place I just want to live at. I could sleep here." So that really then thought, okay, it feels like home. It's not so intimidating. But then, obviously, then the first assessments, and thinking, well, I failed a lot at school, and, thinking, am I going to fail? And, can I get through this? And the amazing thing was that because I was learning something that I loved and was interested in,
Yeah.
I just couldn't put the book down. I couldn't
But
stop reading. And I remember doing chemical engineering. I'd have all this pre-reading. I wouldn't do the pre-reading. I'd barely turn up to lectures, and they're giving me pre-reading and all this stuff, and I'm just devouring it. And so it was just a totally different experience. And so certainly our past, doesn't determine our future, and I realized that. And the funny thing was, these nightmares of failing subjects and, can't learn, stupid, all that sort of stuff, they disappeared as I started to rewrite the script by going back to school, getting good marks, and loving what I was studying. And so, yeah, I don't have those nightmares anymore, which is incredible. And I obviously have had that then, learning the information and then working out how to get that out to the world. That's been a journey in itself. But
yeah.
I, again, like, back then, I would be too scared to get on the podcast with you, for example. Like, I'd have that imposter syndrome. And, like, it was up until I think I might have broken it. And anyway, it was probably 2018 or something like that. But before that, I was thinking, who would want to listen to me? What have I got to share? And it was that low sort of self-worth, self-esteem, and that imposter syndrome, thinking, "Oh, Dr. Anna Marie, she's a doctor, like, I can't talk to her. She's at another level, like it." And so I would always, be looking at all these other, inspiring writers and podcasters, and thinking, "Oh, shit, that's intimidation, like." uh,
Yeah. I get that. I
I
totally
am.
get
Yeah.
that. Oh my gosh. I love that story. It's absolutely amazing because I think too, I always talk about how the body is, I call it acting out using air quotes, or expressing ailment, dis-ease, misalignment in the way of, you name the health concern that could be diagnosed by a medical doctor. I believe the body is doing this because we are off track. So your body expressing, you know, inability to focus, dyslexia, that was your body saying, "Hey, you're on the wrong path."
Yeah,
I mean, I did the same thing.
yeah.
I've been diagnosed with all sorts of things, dyslexia, ADHD, depression, blah, blah, blah. And all of those diagnoses were when I wasn't in alignment with
Yeah,
what I know to be true in my heart of what I'm supposed to be doing.
yeah,
So even though, yeah, I may say something backwards or write something backwards, it's not like interrupting my life how it did years ago when I was studying things that were that were not in alignment with who I was. Do you resonate with that at all?
100%. Now, I think my wife would say I have OCD towards what I do, right? Because I'm obsessed, right? So again, like, and this is, I totally agree with you. I think like labels, we need to have labels because that's the human language. That's how we communicate. Because we hear a label, we know what it is, we understand it, we can do things like, and so I can understand why we have labels. But
Yeah.
I think the difficult thing today is the attachment to labels, like people allowing that label to define them. And I often, you probably see it, seeing patients and um yeah, your clients is that they come to you and they go, I am bipolar, I am depressed, and they've really attached themselves and allowed that label to define them. Whereas, I guess what I've realized with labels is that they just enable communication and people have
Yeah.
understandings and whatnot. But it's when you allow that label to define you, that's when it becomes a problem, right? It's
Yeah.
because other than that, it is just a label. And you think about through time, like all through time, the evolution, the human evolution, these would have all existed, right? We just didn't have terms for them, right? We called them different things. And like if you look at, African tribes, they had, witch doctors and people were, cast with I have a spell, I have the OCD spell at the moment, like, and so I need a witch doctor to help me to free that spirit or that evil in me or whatever. So and so these conditions that they're probably not new. We've just got new labels for them. And the challenge today is that, and some of the things that encourage this attachment is like when, like in Australia, you get benefits if you got certain labels, right? So you get pay, you get money, and so then the person thinks, well, if I don't have this label, I won't get this benefit, and so this is a really interesting dynamic that's playing out here. And the other one is that, like, because of the access to information we have these days, you've got these young kids that are on TikTok and someone on TikTok saying, "Do you have this, 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 this?" And they're
And
thinking, "Yeah, at times I do have this, 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 this." Right. And then what they're doing is diagnosing themselves. Right. And then they're telling all their friends, "Hey, I've got this," um, and so this is creating a bit of a problem, I see.
uh yes, I agree. So there's so much there. So the first thing when I have clients that come to me and tell me they have whatever they've been told they have, we like to reframe it and say that it's not anything we have, it's what we're experiencing.
Yeah.
Right? So we don't have this thing, we're experiencing this. The body is experiencing and expressing this. It's not something we have to hold on to. The other thing that you talked about is the meaning. The meaning we attach to everything. Anytime we have a meaning, that is the emotional aspect that changes our biochemistry. So if we have an emotional attachment to being somebody who has anxiety or somebody who is depressed, we will chemically release from our brain components or compounds chemicals to make that to be true because our brain will filter the word to validate everything we're saying to it and it will act in that capacity. And I can say that because I've been through that.
Mm.
The times I said I'm depressed, I'm depressed, I'm depressed. Guess what? I would feel more and more depressed the more I would talk about it. Right? It was until I started to shift my language that it was like, "Oh, this is just something I'm experiencing. It's not something that's true nor something that I have." And so that helped me a lot. Um, and then the question that I think we can all ask ourselves when we are in any predicament, anything that we feel that is holding us back in life, that we are telling ourselves is true. Like, this is so true. Of course it's true because I have all these things to say why this is true. What if you asked yourself, what if it wasn't true? Like, just playing imaginary. Like, what if this thing wasn't true? Because when you ask yourself that, you can start to see what's possible. If it wasn't true, I'd be doing this, I'd be doing that, I'd be thinking this way, I'd be happier, blah, blah, blah. So, like, what if you allowed yourself to feel those things and do those things anyways, even though you're thinking it's true? So, I don't know if that makes sense, but like the whole label thing drives me crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Yes. Like I often think about, how they, that these are often diagnosed through questionnaires, right? And depending on that time of the day you answer that questionnaire, you're going to get different answers, right?
It's a time of the day for a man,
Yes.
it's time of the month for a woman,
Yes,
time
true, true,
like, there's
true.
so many.
That's true. That's true. It's so true. Like, so yeah, when your estrogen's flat and you're feeling shit, and then you're going, yeah, you got to be diagnosed with every mental health issue, like,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh,
yeah,
totally. What
yeah. So yeah, and this is what yeah, and it's actually the thing is, you think about life. Life is not linear, right? So it's cycles, right? We receive information through waves, and everything's in a wave pattern. We go through emotions in waves. We experience life through waves and labels in waves. Everything's sort of
Yeah.
yeah. So and this is yeah, and I think if you like just collapse that wave and think that's who I am for life, then that's what we need to shift that, as you said, shift the language, remove that emotional attachment, and then open up to all possibilities because as there is unlimited potential, unlimited possibilities for everyone. Um, and we can create the life that we want through changing that thinking, changing that narrative, changing that story, just like I just shared in terms of changing my story around being stupid, dumb, failure, all of this sort of stuff.
Yes. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah. And when we change our story, we change our biology. And when I mean biology, I mean we change our health because our genes are only expressed in certain environments, meaning we can trigger dis-ease or we can trigger healing based on how we're thinking. And this has been proved in science over and over and over again. And I think that oftentimes, I know, like, for at least here in America, that equation is taken out. Right? Like, I mean, has anyone ever been to a doctor and they're like, "Oh, how are you thinking and speaking about your life?" Like, what's going on with the words you're using or if them paying attention to how you're talking. Like, that is one of the first things that I do when I'm with someone is I'm listening for, are they using phrases that are absolutes, that are victim mindset, that are, and can we shift things? Can we change them? Because if we can shift the way the mind is thinking, then we're shifting the chemicals that are being released, then we can shift how we're feeling inside that'll shift the behavior, which is like powerful. Okay. So there's one thing you said that I just need to like be an American and wondering. You said people get certain monies for certain labels.
Yeah.
So how does that work in your country?
Yeah, so we have this national NDIS, which is National Disability Insurance Scheme. And
Mm,
so it's there as a safety net. Obviously, it's
yeah.
there for a good reason.
Mhm.
As you know, with any scheme, any free money, there's people that take the mickey out of it, or and so we have it's going out of control, and it's becoming a huge deficit. We're struggling to fund it. And it's just been a complete minefield because, as you know, a lot of these mental health labels are defined by questionnaires. And I could go to the doctor tomorrow or just right now after this podcast,
Oh, would bet.
answer the questionnaire in a particular way, and there I go. I've got my label. I hand that to the government, and here I go. I've got some free money. And so, yeah, this is
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah,
I gotcha.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
We know this. I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to like articulate this because I'm taking a 2 hour session with a client and gonna try to share this. But this client is having anxiety attacks like every single day and is in a lot of pain in her body. She's gone to all these medical doctors and they can't, other than giving her an anti-anxiety med and other addictive medications, they're like, "You're fine, everything's fine with you, can't figure this out." She is in quote unquote retirement years. Okay. First of all, she worked at a prison for over 20 years. The energy and the frequency of the negativity, conscious or unconscious, is being stored and attached to her body for sure. The other thing, and I'm paraphrasing this, is that she said that she's waiting for her disability.
Yeah.
She's waiting for her disability before she can do things.
Yes.
And I'm like, so it's that language. I'm waiting to live my life until it is, like, proclaimed that I am disabled.
Mm,
And I'm like, "You are not disabled."
mm,
Like, we went on this whole conversation about how she's not disabled and about how there's things that she could do and about the way she was thinking and speaking about her life was like, "My life is over." But the beautiful thing is that she was here, which was great, so she does want something more and to feel better. But it was, like, almost like she couldn't do these things she wants to do until that disability gets settled.
mm.
And I'm like, "Do you see how you're allowing
Yes.
like, you're allowing that to interfere with you living your life?"
Yeah.
Right? So if you lose that label of "I'm disabled" and you step out of the label of "I'm disabled" and you step into "I have energy, I feel so good," like, all of this, what's possible? What would you be doing? And she named, like, all these things she'd be doing, and she named the one thing that if she could go back and repeat things that she would be doing every single day. And so I asked her, "Why aren't you doing that every single day?" She's like, "I don't know." And it's so interesting because had she continued to do that thing that she was in alignment with 20 some years ago, would her body be expressing anxiety? Would her body be expressing pain? Probably not. It's so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating to me, all of this. It's like
Ah,
crazy. Okay.
it's yeah, it's incredible. We have similar insurance or, pension or disability things, for emergency services. Like, totally get why they're there, right?
Oh, I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
listen.
yeah,
Yeah, like,
yeah,
I
yeah,
get it. Like, and
yeah.
this is but this is not
Yes.
like, it's gotten so out of control. It's
Mm,
like, of course,
correct.
these things were put into place to help our fellow citizens, absolutely,
Yeah.
and we all can fall on hard times and need
Mm,
support or, whatnot. But again, why aren't we in conversation about what's possible,
yeah.
versus what we can't do? It's
Yes.
always the
Yeah,
focus, what we can't do, what I can't
yes.
have,
Yeah,
and it's just so, so interesting.
yeah,
And I've been there in my own mindset, so I've
yeah.
been on both sides of it. I get it. Okay, I did write down a couple questions for you. Um, I wanted to know right now what wellness trends are like exciting you right now.
It's definitely sunlight. So,
Oh,
and I,
okay.
I, I think the big reason behind that is just because of what we've been told around sunlight and how it's been labeled. And for me, it's very much the same with fat, right? So the labels around fat, and we have bad cholesterol. Nature doesn't make any mistakes. Everything
Yeah.
we have is for a reason. And just like medicine has realized before that, the tonsils were once a redundant, and the same with the appendix. We're just ripping them out, and we're still ripping things out today and thinking they're redundant and they don't serve a purpose. And then we realize after the fact, oh no, this is why they're there. This is and so, these things we're being told around fat and sunlight again are a lie. And it is really.
Like,
driven.
wear sunscreen, stay out of
Yeah.
sun, like, all of that is, like, hurting our biology versus helping us. We need the sun. The sun is very important to create vitamin D in the body. Also, cholesterol levels are important that they're optimal versus being super low because you can't create vitamin D without cholesterol.
Yes.
So, yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
so this is what Anthony's saying, you guys, is the sun is your friend, and now I wanna say they're like recently in the States, they came out with like, "Oh, by the way, like, a bunch of these sunscreens and the chemicals are in it are actually carcinogenic."
Mm, mm,
Like, they're just now coming out with them. Like,
yeah.
titanium
Yeah.
dioxide, I believe, is the one that's like, okay, safe, yes, but you also aren't supposed to go in the ocean with it because it kills coral.
Yeah.
And then but the other sunscreens with all the chemicals in them that smell like sunscreen, like, those are carcinogenic, and the reaction that they have on the skin, and your skin's the biggest organ of the body, it's, like, a lot of damage, so, yeah, okay, I'm glad you're saying yes to the sun, and then
Yes.
how do you do your sun exposures? Like, what if you were to give a prescription, and I know you don't prescribe, we don't diagnose, neither one of us do that, but we'll just use that word, um what would you recommend is the best prescription for sunlight?
Just before I go on to that, I just want to touch on the point that you were raising before, and I think we overcomplicate health, right?
Yeah.
We look, you get what I mean? Like, health is really simple, and I think for the listeners, I really love them to think about before they take another supplement, pop another pill, or chase another diagnosis. Is really, are you doing the fundamentals of health well? And really tune into those fundamentals, and like, it's food as medicine first, like, unless you're really deficient, really deficient, obviously, Dr. Anna Marie Frank can tell you if you're really deficient and need some supplementation in order to get you up to a level that's going to be able to lift you above the waterline, so to speak. So yeah, so just, yeah, for the listeners, just really connect back to the basics, and make sure your nutrition's there. And the big part that I'm gonna get into right now is sunlight, right? So if you think about life, life began with the sun, right? And it continues with the sun. Without the sun, there's no life, right? So if you want more life, a longer health span, a longer lifespan, longevity, it requires sunlight as number one, right? And the reason why I've put it as number one, and it's taken, the last year I've sort of got my head around sunlight and the importance of the human body, is it drives everything within the human body. It is our communicator of information and energy. And so if we're disconnected from the sun, we are disconnected from our energy source and an information source. So what do I mean by, well, energy and information are interchangeable, right? But essentially what the sun does is direct the body in terms of telling it what to do at specific times of the day, in the seasons and times of the year, right? So if you're disconnected from the sun and you're indoors all the time, how is your body meant to know what it's supposed to do, right? So, and this is why this dysregulation, miscommunication is expressing itself in disease, is essentially because there's no coherence in the body. There's all miscommunication. You think about our lifestyle, 90% indoors, we are essentially getting the same light signal all day. The body is confused, thinking, well, I didn't evolve this way. I didn't just see blue light all day, all day. And like, so this is the light that we have above us is telling us that it's the middle of the day and the middle of summer. Well, we know that that's not the case, right? But the body's confused and it keeps doing what it needs to do for the middle of the day and the middle of summer, which is probably not aligned to what it actually is. And so, in terms of what to do, like protocols for your clients, the most important thing is that we get our body in sync with the sun. And that requires getting up with sunrise, right? And as much as you think, oh, that's tough, once you start, you'll be unstoppable. It's just like that sliding door moment I have with Damien on stage. You'll have this sliding door moment with your health. I started, it's only like 80, probably less than 18 months ago, and I do not want to miss a sunrise, but I do miss them at times because of life, right? But And I really feel it, right? So my connection to the sun is incredible. And so start with sunrise. Now, what happens with sunrise? That red light that we see turns on our mitochondria, which turns on the powerhouse of the cell. So we start to generate our energy systems. Okay. So the energy's building for you. And the amazing thing is we also, with UV. So once we get UVA, which is just after sunrise, probably an hour, depending on where you are, at which latitude, it's going to vary. But, an hour or two after sunrise, we start to see UVA. UVA then turns on these neurotransmitters serotonin and dopamine, these things that we now associate with good mental health and well-being. We start to produce cortisol with more blue coming into the, I guess, us seeing more visible blue light. And so all these spectrums, like visible and non-visible, obviously UV is non-visible and infrared is non-visible. They all do something for the body. And we could talk another hour about this, right? So,
Yeah.
but my take home point is that's your multivitamin. That
Mm.
is what you need to be doing every day. And how you do it is check in with the sun regularly. Check in with your life's source, the source of information and energy regularly throughout the day. So what does that look like? 5 minutes every hour. If you can't do 5 minutes every hour, it's 10 minutes every 2 hours or 15 minutes every 4 hours, if you're really busy and back to being meeting. So whenever you can, so I apply the Pomodoro principle. After this conversation, I'll be stepping outside and checking
Me
in.
too.
Yeah, checking in with the sun. So that is so underrated. And just getting back to the, how we've told that the skin is evil, UV's evil. Like, so UV is running mTOR. We know, like we hear all this about mTOR, Peter Adia and all these longevity doctors are talking about mTOR and how we can stimulate it through supplements and stuff like that. You know what mTOR is? It absorbs UV light and transmits UV light. If you're not getting UV light, mTOR is not working, right? Regardless of what supplements you take. So we need UV light, and we need so much of it, but we need to do it based on our skin type. So if you've got a fair skin type, you need less UV light. If you've got a darker skin type, you need a hell of a lot more. So it's really adapting to the sun based on your skin type, being sensible and but not overprotective. As you know, when we're overprotective parents, we don't allow our children to grow up. Well, your body won't thrive if you're overprotective of it. And so the other important thing is that we have these non-visual photoreceptors both in our retina and on our skin.
Mhm.
And so we want coherent signals going to the retina, our eyes, and our skin. So that means we don't want to be wearing sunglasses, right? So otherwise, we get miscommunication. The light that the retina is receiving is different to what the skin's receiving, and the body gets confused, which results in disorder and disease.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so good. Yeah, I stopped using sunglasses quite a few years ago. And I wake up every morning and I go stand in my backyard and I get to watch the sun come up over the mountains. Like such a great moment. Like every day I look forward to it. And then when I'm in my office, when my door's open, the sun is right coming through, and then I will walk outside and just go stand in front of my building. And sometimes I'll like, depending on where the sun is, I'll go stand on the corner and I just sit there like this. People are like, "What is she doing?" But I don't care. But yeah, it's like so incredibly important. And yeah, it's free. But that's the thing. It's like I think health only became confusing because it's been people try to monetize
Mm.
on it, right? So it's like I always tell people, I mean, we have our own nutraceutical line that I've created. Um, but I'll also have people come in and I'm like, bring in the supplement you're taking because I want to read the label on the back. I want to read the ingredients where most people are just looking at, well, what's it saying to me? What it's saying on the front is like all the reasons why you should buy it, why we think you should buy it, because those are like keywords, right? But what really matters is what's on the box. Like, what are you really putting in your body? And so, from that, people can capitalize on that, but no one's capitalizing on the sun. I mean, this is this is not something that so no one's people aren't gonna be talking about, like, get sunlight, but it is one of the things I write down on people's recommendation sheet. Normally, it's between 7 and 9 AM, get 10 minutes,
Mm.
between around 11 and 12 or 1, I get another 10 minutes, and then between 4 and 6, another 10 minutes or so because I mean, it's what we need, sets up our hormones for women, sets up our
Yes.
hormones for the day. So those of you in perimenopause or in menopause, just do that one thing. What Anthony said, wake up with the sun, go outside, get your sunlight in, try that for 10 days and see what happens to you. It'll really start to shift some things for sure.
100%, like metabolism will change. Yeah, your hormonal profile will change. You will change mentally in terms of just having more energy, like the energy that you can get from the sun. Like,
Mhm.
so what 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 I've come across is that we can get 70% of our energy requirements from the environment. And you think about today's lifestyle, right? We probably get 70% from food and only 30% from the environment. So we've flipped the equation around. And you can imagine if you're getting 70% from food, what that's going to happen to your body. But if you start to find this better balance and get more and extract more from this free energy from our environment,
Mhm.
then you'll save on your food bill. And the thing is, the amazing thing is that we produce this alpha MSH. It's cleaved from POMC, which is a gene that's initiated from UV light, right? So we need UV light. We initiate this alpha MSH. Alpha MSH suppresses appetite, right? So
Mm.
so if you're struggling to do fasting or you're constantly eating, think about your environment. You're probably indoors too much. Step outside, spend more time outside. When you're outside, you're not as hungry. I certainly find I do not get
Yeah.
hungry when I'm outside.
Yes. Oh my gosh, absolutely. It's like when you go to, like, the beach versus, like,
Yes.
being up in cold weather. Like, cold weather, I'm like, "Oh, I want, like, something really" we call it comfort food or
Yes.
whatever. Yeah, it's and then you're at the beach, you're like, "Oh, I'm good. I just wanna, like, green juice and,
Yes.
a nice light salad." So, yeah, I definitely, I get it. I totally get it. So I love that. Well, thank you so much, Anthony, for joining me today on the podcast. You gave some really great information, and I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you sharing your story because I think there's a lot of people out there that I was one of them. We get caught up in oh gosh, can I make this change? Can I shift my career? Can I? And I always say leverage where you're at and do the best with what you can do, but we're here for a mission and our body will physically respond and our mental health will improve if we are in alignment with our true authentic self for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Anna Marie. Really appreciate it's such an honor to be on your podcast. So thank you. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. And yeah, please share this episode with anyone that you know that could benefit from hearing what we shared today.
Yes, absolutely. And can you share with everyone your other podcasts and where they can find you on socials?
Yeah, so I've got two podcasts as Anna Marie, and Anna Marie's been on both of them. So Health Up is Health Up, just Health Up. If you look up Health Up in Apple or Google or Spotify, and the other one's Joyful Mates. So Joyful Mates centered around mental health, and Health Up is holistic health. And you can find me on meandmywellness.com.au.
Awesome. Thank you so much again, Anthony, and I can't wait to talk to you again.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.